Цифри біжать.
Но вам їх точно не боятися. Ви до них звикли.
Що, Роман, приготувалися і тікали? Тільки йде 10 секунд, ми так Річард сам сидить.
Добрий день, я вітаю всіх, хто приєднався до нас.
Hello, I'm Olga Tamanova, and it's a pleasure to welcome you to Ukrinform Media Center, all of those in studio and those who joined us online. We have invited you today for a very prominent event, namely the press conference of the American playwright Richard Nelson about his visit to Ukraine. Richard Nelson is an American playwright and director, instructor. He won Tony and many other prizes in playwrights industry. So he's here today with us in Media Center while he is still with us in Ukraine. Also today with us is Bohdan Benyuk, artistic director of the Kyiv Academic Drama Theater in Podil, and Roman Halaimov, an actor of the Kyiv Academic Drama Theater in Podil, who plays the main role in Richard Nelson's play. But about this a bit later, so probably Bogdan, let us kickstart with you. So how it made possible, how this caliber star is here in Ukraine and how you work on the same play. So thank you, and I would like to welcome everyone, those who are watching us today. And of course, we have so many positive emotions that we share today with Mr. Richard Nelson, because we cannot even now know what a time bomb he left in our Podil theater, because we want lifeblood coming from all over the world with different tastes, with different theatrical experiences. And Richard managed to generate and promote this extremely positive atmosphere that our play that will premiere in early May. Richard is among those people who is also very much into psychology, and as psychological theater is at the same time extremely simple and extremely difficult. I am an instructor in Karpenko-Kary Theatrical Institute, so as a professor I understand that whether we like it or not, we have our actors school, which is dramatic theater school, and we have actors department for movies, and it kind of blurs the boundaries between the actors who are into movies and those who are in theaters. And sometimes people ask what are the differences between people who are on the scene in the theater and those who are in front of camera in the movies. So of course those differences are present, and watching for 6 weeks how Richard selected actors he wanted to work with him. So this very meticulous point of view as a master of psychological action, and I listen to what actors talk to one another, what they share with one another. And in respect of Richard, they claim that he has a depth of soul, something that not every director could be proud of, because he loves to dive into relations. Previously, they said that for the actor, that's the important thing is when you kind of follow everything one step at a time, when the dialogue is being born, as Richard likes to say, that at the scene you have to have eyes and you have to have words that direct the soul of a person, and you cannot pre-program what would be the intonations, what would be the next flow of actions. There's a window where you can peep into what's happening with the sessions, and of course, when you have a clandestine view at how they work at finding those crystals of soul in everybody, in every actor. So yesterday, I wanted to find on the internet some curiosities about Richard that I didn't know before, but once again, I learned that his plays in Broadway in London, his Dядя Vanya, Uncle Vanya, and his detailization is a favorite style, and everything on the table, all the audience around us, and the show that takes place despite the willingness of people, but because of the energy that people bring into the joint atmosphere they create. So I would call it a surgeon. And in the time of war, of course, we have so many medical needs that we have saving bodies, but he is among those surgeons who save souls. So in pre-premiere shows, we can already see how Richard manages to reach the synergy between audience's eyes and the soul emanating from the scene. So, Richard, I would like to thank you for spending your time, almost 2 months of being with us here. You've been in the atmosphere that you would obviously share with others, because this is lifetime experience with air raid alarms and ongoing war conflicts, and something that nobody wants to have as an experience, but when you have it, that's great. And a pupil came from Paris and is involved in this show. That's also extremely important, because probably well, Mr. Arman, by the way, would you like to join us here while Richard talks, or Roman? I would ask you to bring one more chair, because all these things that Arman shares with us in terms of his French experience about. So we actually see you as this large ball of scenic truth, because once in the interview I read that when you said that you're concerned that in the theater right now there are lots of audience visitors who are hunger for plays, and yeah, even in those 2 weeks before the Easter there will be no tickets left in Kyiv theaters. In the Operetta Theater, the Chicago show is on tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. In Franco Theater, Maria Stuart play. In Lesy Ukrainka Theater across the street would be Shakespeare's Othello premiere. And we, at the end of April, early May, we would kind of summarize everything that a person is worth in our two-school talks. What is the value of life? What is the value of truth and honesty and trust of people? Sorry for usurping time with this long speech, but hopefully I wanted to emanates kindness and love from our heart, because for a small troop of ours, 155 people, you showed us masterful things that we sometimes lose in childhood, because kids never lie, and it's important that those moments of truth, clear truth, and that's what the dialogue stems from. That's exactly what we need, and we're grateful to you for that. So could you please share with us what you've been doing here, what your impressions, what you like the most, what problems you feel?
Ми раді вітати.
Richard, pleasure welcoming you here. So yeah, we would like to hear your impressions from Ukraine. For us, well, we know that you had plays in New York and Chicago and Paris du Soleil and London. Now you're here in Ukraine, the country that has the 11th year of ongoing war, of which the 3rd year of full-fledged invasion. So, of course, we would like to learn from you. What was your motivation to come here? Thank you.
I came here because Mr. Benyuk invited me. And he surprised me. I thought we were having a conversation on Zoom, and we were just talking about my play. And then he asked me if I would come and direct it. And I was flattered, and I was honored, and I was excited. For me, theater has been my life. I've been working in the theater for well over 50 years. And one is always looking for that feeling that what one does matters. That it has a place and a purpose beyond making money, being successful in those terms, but finding a different kind of success, one that feels essential to a culture, to a city, to a country, at a certain time. And that's what I found here. I've been honored to be here. I've been really lucky to be here. Mr. Benyuk talks about the soul. Well, it's opened up my soul a great deal. Extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. It's a brilliant actor to my left, one of 6 brilliant actors that I'm working with, who work endlessly, tirelessly at the theater at a time when it's difficult. 2 days ago, we were interrupted twice in rehearsal by air raid alerts. And as I promised my wife, I would always obey every single alert and find a shelter. Not everyone in Kyiv does that. So I bring all the actors to the shelter, and we continue to work. It's extraordinary to find that. I mean, theater really does matter. It matters in a very complex and rich way within a culture. There's a man, a great theater man named Peter Brook, who I got to know late in his life. And he told me he was once asked in an interview, what's the future of theater? And he answered, what's the future of food? It's an essential element of life, of culture, civilization, and humanism. So being in this very beautiful city where I'd never been before, in this extraordinary country where I'd never been before, has been a really rich and exciting and important experience for me. And as I say, and I say again and again, to myself and to my friends who are far away, I find myself extremely lucky to be here.
Пане Річарде, тож ми
Well, Richard, on May the 2nd and the 3rd, there will be your play on display. So what is there to expect? Well, traditionally there are no tickets available already, but what should we expect at the premiere?
Well, the play is set in 45 BC. So it's a long time ago. And it's set in a town called Tusculum, which is a wealthy community outside of Rome, where wealthy people had their villas. And the play is centered around a family. That family consists of Brutus, Cassius, Cicero, Servilia, Portia, people well known in the history of Roman civilization. And during that summertime, they try to figure out how to manage, how to deal with, how to control a man who's gaining more and more and more power, Caesar. And during that summer, they think they can. They convince themselves, they compromise themselves, they get confused, they betray themselves. And that's what the play is about, that summer. And we all know in 44 BC, months later, in March, in the Ides of March, something happened. But it's centered on this family and its conversations among these people. And it's about people and the complexities and confusions and ambiguities that we all live with and that we all see in our lives. So that's, I think, I was talking to one of my actresses yesterday, and I said, that in my mind, there are two kinds of plays. One in which the audience is going to say, or thinking, what's going to happen? And then there's the play in which the audience is saying, what has happened? And trying to figure it out. And it's the latter that my work is about. It's sort of like unpeeling an onion. Who are these people? What are they doing? What do we learn more and more and more about them? I start my rehearsals. Every time I rehearse a play, I start and I say the same thing to my actors. That our goal is simple and hard. It is to put people on the stage who are as lost, confused, ambiguous, sad, happy as any one person in the audience. That's our goal. And we will always fail because we're not God. But that's our goal, that's our ambition, and that's what we're trying to do. So that's what I hope people, when they come to see the show, they will find themselves leaning forward, overhearing conversations of complex human beings in difficult times that somehow they find some relation to or understanding of or reflection on.
Пане Річарде,
Well, Richard, in Ukrainian media, we had a couple of your interviews published already, and in one of them, you said that this play should be treated as a separate work, not as an adaptation. So what did you mean by that, and why have you selected this particular play?
What I meant by as a separate work, meaning that I've treated the play as if it were new. And so I've made changes to the play, even though the play, I directed this play before in New York some years ago. But I'm not trying to reproduce the production. I'm trying to start afresh and rethink the play. And as the playwright, I have made changes throughout the script. And as the director, it's a very, very different production than the one I did before. So I consider it a very new thing. Why this play? Why now? I think that's a question for others to say. Why chosen? What's interesting about it to do it today in Kyiv? I am extremely interested to hear from an audience about how they respond to the play and whether the play has a resonance for them today.
ну і не можу.
And of course, I should ask you, what is the difference working with the Ukrainian actors is there any difference? How do you find your troupe? So anything to share with us?
I mean, actors are actors in a certain way. I wrote a play that I did in Paris recently, and in it about a group of actors, and one actor talks about going to a country where he didn't know the language and walking into a rehearsal and knowing within minutes what was going on, what they were trying to solve, why they were having trouble, and so forth. The theater is of a universal language, so that's the groundwork. Each theater, the way in which theaters are organized, that's different, and that's a discovery that one has to make, the journey that one takes. These are 6 highly skilled, very trained, very smart actors, and also very committed to being open to what I'm suggesting and what I'm trying to do from the perspective that I work in. And I hope that they've found an excitement in that. That's the impression I get back, and I can tell you as a director, one can ask for anything more.
Романе, питання буде.
Roman, now the question to you. You are the actor who plays the protagonist in this play, so please share with us your impressions working with Richard and with this team. Hello, everyone. Wow, quite an echo. Well, it's not important whether I play the protagonist, because all of the roles could be treated as leading roles, because they do play extremely important roles in and of themselves. So for me, working with Richard proved to be a very unique experience, because again, we've been exposed only to the Ukrainian theatrical environments, and I've been only exposed to what I believed is modern theater, but the one in Ukraine. And what's I'm experiencing now is a good old forgotten but now recalled into existence theater, the old theater when the word was important, a psychological theater where a spectator, a viewer has just to be very attentive to each word. It's not like a show that they show us in Ukrainian theaters, like sweeping through pictures, and it's so the viewers now want to be entertained visually and with a nice classical soundtrack, but the play I'm working in right now, it causes the spectator, I believe, to be more intellectually in the process, listening to each word that the actors say. And previously, the theater had the fourth wall, which we almost got rid of in the modern day theater. So for me, this particular theater was of interest to me because I believe that here the actors are staying within four walls, and the viewers, the spectators, are located around a room where the action takes place. And as an actor, you have no choice to make. I mean, scene and spectators. Here, the main vector of action is from one actor to another actor, and actors are just present there, and they just play in the presence of spectators. It's almost we acknowledge that spectators are right here, somewhere out there in the same room, invisible, listening and watching and observing what's going on, and being private to the conversations that they sometimes might not have in reality be private to, but they still are. And also it's a great experience to work with not only prominent playwright, but great personality as well. Well, Richard managed to create a cool atmosphere for all of us working there. It's just unbelievably kind person with great patience, and for us actors that's important, of course. And Arman, of course, thank you for just having a chance of working with a person who knew Tennessee Williams and Mr. Brooke well. That's quite an experience. Thank you for that. Yeah, thank you, Arman. The floor is yours. Roman said a lot of interesting insights about this play, and I know that you have selected a small hall for this play. So what was the reason to do that, to preserve this atmosphere of everyone being present? Yeah. Hello, and truth be told, this small hall has been selected by Richard. But I believe that's exactly what Richard was trying to achieve, to involve a spectator not only in this process of the theater, but into the thoughts and ideas in the heads of the actors. And this closeness is very important. So what are your impressions from Ukraine and with what you've observed in the last month and a half? Well, first of all, it's really a pleasure being on the same trip with Richard right now, because the atmosphere that was created in Podil theater, that kind of involves all of the actors, allowing us to understand that theater and art is not only words, it's action. And every day they come in the right mood. And when I see them in this combat mood, I would say, well, I have yet another hope, and that Ukraine would finally win this war. Well, colleagues, time for questions. Anna Shpechenko, Ukrinform, Media Center, Ukraine. So I'd like to ask you about your master class. It was announced, and whether it's going to be given to actors, directors, playwrights. Anything to add?
The master class will basically be a conversation. I will try and set out my view of the kind of theater that I try to make, why I try to make it, where it comes from, and some of the specifics of how what's involved with that. So I'll be talking, and then listening, and hopefully a conversation will evolve from people who have been working in the theater or interested in the theater, and that's what I look forward to, because I look forward to meeting more people and talking about theater here in Kyiv. So that's what it's for me.
Друзі, якщо маєте ще питання,
Любов Базів, Ukrinform. I have a question to Richard, if you will. You've been talking to students a lot over the last month, and students is our future. Students is what we invest into. So have you felt any potential from them, from those young students?
I definitely, and I have spoken to one big class of students and then a few others along the way. I'll tell you something that was very interesting to me. Two young students said to me, you know, we go to the theater now. Theater is really important to us now, far more than it was before the invasion, the full-scale invasion. And they said, yes, before then, theater was mostly for, and they used the term grown-ups, you know. It was a boring thing, or didn't have a place or a function or a reason to go. And so when I talked to a class at the drama school, at Mr. Benyuk's school, I asked the students, I said, why do you go to the theater? Why? And they say, yes, we go to the theater all the time. Theater's become really important. So I asked why. And I started to get a number of different answers, and I found that really interesting. One was because of the full-scale invasion, they wanted to know more about their Ukrainian culture, and somehow the theater represented that. I found that really moving that theater could represent that to a young generation. Another response was, it's good to be together, in the same place at the same time, as a group, doing something together. We're not alone. And there are other reasons too. But so I found the engagement with theater by the young group, young generation, to be really deep and now profound. And I was extremely moved by that.
Пане Річард, у мене ще
Well, Richard, I would have a couple of questions to you. We know that the first place ran out of tickets, so will you have plans for more shows? Probably you have plans to come back to Ukraine at some later point of time. Do you have any ideas about some joint projects or inviting the Ukrainians back to your place?
To me?
То вам, пане.
to me. Well, I'm open for invitations. Absolutely. I'm a guest here. It's a wonderful place to be, especially right now. And it's a wonderful place to work. I would certainly love to have a chance to connect work here with other places. That's complicated. It's just complicated in terms of various laws to do right now. But in time, I hope that can happen.
чудово. Дякую.
That's great. Thank you, friends. If you have any more questions, let me know. And I would ask the question to everyone. We have pointed out today at the phenomenon when at the time of the full-fledged invasion there was a huge surge in interest to theaters, to shows, to plays. So what would be your take on this trend? Why do you think that in such perilous, difficult times between the rock and the hard place, you still want to be transported to another world coming to theater? Well, since we, with Richard, are relatively young persons, even though we have seen a lot in our lives, well, I've seen blooming periods of Ukrainian movies. It was back in 1980s and 90s, where there was lots of successful movies, and it was called the poetic movie era. And people who were on staff of Davzhenko movie studio, they told us, to dramatic theater actors, they said, well, soon enough they will close down all the theater houses because the movie wins it all. And so we would be envious to watching those actors who work from one movie studio to another. But then here's another miracle that happens numerous of times in the previous history of theater in humankind, but in Ukraine in particular. There is a surge of interest of people when spectators can observe how a life or new life is born in front of his or her eyes every single time. And that's what Richard tries to create in this web of talks in his play, when people discuss such vital important issues that are all about the future of existence of humankind, because those six who discuss their own future and the future of their country, they obviously have to face the same challenges that we are facing right now. So when this life is born in front of spectators' lives, well, this is the competitive advantage with any movie, because a movie actor could see his own movie and think to himself, well, I would have done it differently, but you don't have the copyright. It's not up to you. It's up to producers, those who edit it, and then cut it the way they see it. While the theater, it's all different, and that's exactly why we enjoy watching the theater goers, whom we believe we need to take when we visit other towns and cities. But yeah, this, by the way, interest is huge, not only in Ukraine, but all over Ukraine, where there is, there would be a couple of new scenes opened on the roof, in the bomb shelter, in the basement, or and tickets are quite pricey. In Zinkovetsky Theater in Lviv, for instance, with a new director, and in Ukraine, 2 or 3 theaters that could not meet their financial obligations, but mostly these are the theaters which sell out a month or 2 months ahead of time. Why? Well, because it's a normal actors, and we are grateful to have the whole number of directors who allow us actors who used to tell one another 10 years ago, oh, come on, it's business as usual, nothing new, even when we visit other countries, well, it's just for one show and then back again. And so we've always felt like on the periphery, but now this breakthrough happened thanks to directors. And Arman said that, well, we'll have more directors coming from France, from Germany, and we'll start getting this new blood coming in. And Richard's a person who is young at heart, and he shows us how it is to believe in the future of theater. And when you're close to him, you feel that you would get better just working with him. So that's great that he's with us, and it's great that he all the plays, all the shows that will happen, and then you'll see that we'll add it on the schedule, and then we'll have it 5 times a year, and then you can tell your wife, look, here the most wanted thing in this country, a ticket to the show. And so, yeah, and he'll then come and deliver the next show next time, because if we have this magnetism in Ukraine, well, that's exactly why the US Congress voted to support Ukraine and hopefully support not only financially and militarily, but we need to open the floodgates of creativity as well. And that's why people love theater. That's why people come to theater, because it's a living organism. This is the future. And the fact that people forget for 2.5 hours about the problems, well, that's therapy. The theater treats souls. But again, not suggesting what needs to be done. It's up to each spectator to learn that for themselves. Well, Richard, Arman, will you agree with Arman's take on the answer why the theater is so popular in the time of war?
Ну, я згоден.
Тут ваш
Well, first of all, I agree with Bogdan's take on this. But if you look at the history of theater from ancient times, from ancient Greece, we know that spectators come to the theaters to listen to the question and try to find the answer, but being with others. Watching movies, you are on your own. In the theater, actors might make mistakes. They're live people, and that's extremely important. And well, we'll remember that when Nazis were bombing London, they had plays in London Metro, Underground. No. They need it. Yeah, that's their necessity. As much a necessity as food. That's theater. Richard, any last words from you?
I agree. In relationship to this, let me just read you something briefly that I wrote in a program. What?
The words?
The words. It says, so in troubled and troubling times, theater has not only an opportunity, but the responsibility to portray the confusion and articulate the ambiguities, doubts, and fears of its time. The goal then being not to argue a point or a side, but to attempt to portray people and worlds as they are, not as we wish them to be. Theater, to my mind, is not an argument, but an effort to create and to portray human complexity, which we then share with a living audience, human being to human being.
Дякую вам
Це
за ці
Річард
слова.
Нельсон сказав. Це Річард сказав.
Is it Richard Nelson's quote, right?
Yes, it's me. That's me. Yes, yes. I quote myself.
Дякую вам за такі.
Okay, thank you for beautiful words. Thank you for this inspiring talk. And those of you who had doubts why you need to go and watch some plays, now you know why. I would like to share with you our plans, because we all live hoping for the future. Once my mom told me, live thinking about the living, so the plans that we have ahead of us, because what we did, well, it's already there. That's part and parcel of us, but what's going to happen in the future. Will Rachel Nelson would like to have another play with Bogdan or not? Will we have other directors and playwrights who would come and work with us? So we start coming up with a plan for next year, and for the time being we know that the directors love our Podil theater and some well-known So thanks God that we already have a number of great plays and directors, but we want our theater being famous not only for Andreev Uzvi's streets, but also would be treated as the theater opened almost 40 years ago, but that is pulsing with youth. And youth is brought in by such respected people who from time to time bring us back to attempts to studying our souls, because new technological breakthroughs make us think that we know everything about this life, but learning to watch the eyes of one another, see the monologues behind those eyes. That's what you recognize as the best role that the theater should play. And Richard, thank you for bringing us back to this sense of like human beings studying and learning souls one another. So you started with plans, right? David Petrosyan plans 2 plays next year, and of course we could not refuse him, reject him. Then Ivan Urivsky, and from Zinkevitsky Theater, Maxim Galenko will come to us. So if we add 3 foreign directors, well, that's 7 plays, while the names and the actors. So of course we're looking into successful season. Is it true, Oksana? Yeah. Well, thank you for keep working in such difficult times. Thank you for coming and supporting us here in Ukraine. For all of us, that's extremely important. So once again, thank you for being with us. Thank you, friends, for being interested in this topic. We keep working together. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to the heroes.